What's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be diagnosing and fixing our hot car with no AC. Alright, so in a previous episode, you guys probably saw that we did some blend door actuator replacement or gear replacements. So the first thing I want to say is when you're getting into this, check to see if the driver's side is blowing hotter and colder than the passenger side, and if so, the problem probably isn't mechanically, but more so with the blend door gears that you'll see down in here. Now again, this is one of your blend door actuators here. You have one on both sides, and that controls the hot and the cold. You also have a main one up here, and what those things would do is those gears would actually snap off, and what would end up happening is it'd be just on hot or just on cold or whatever. Again, the easy way you can tell that that is the problem is if it's hot on one side and cold on the other, because typically they won't break at the same time. But today, that is not our case. I've already double-checked just to make sure they didn't break again, and it's time to dig in underneath the hood. Alright, so I've already kind of looked into this a little bit. I think I might have found a problem, but I don't know for sure. But what I had done was I'd actually took some dye, and you'll see right here where it's green, just like you would if you were recharging your AC system. I dumped some dye into the system in hopes that it would circulate through and I could find the leak with a UV light. The problem was that the compressor run for about 2 seconds and then it quit once the pressure dropped again and didn't have enough to kick it on. Unfortunately, with these systems, even on your I believe it's called the low side, you cannot like jumper the wire and get it to turn on automatically, manually I should say. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work on these things because the compressor is actually run by your TIPM or your fuse box. So that doesn't really work, and I couldn't run it long enough to find that leak, and that's okay. So I manually kind of looked over everything, tried to see if I could find any other leaks. I kind of figured at this point it wasn't the compressor because the compressor, it's actually turning on, and then once it lost pressure, turned back off, which is kind of its fail-safe. What I did find, though, and you probably won't be able to see it here with the sun shining in, right back here is your condenser. It looks kind of like a radiator, and right in front of that you'll see that there is a transmission cooler. Now, again, you probably can't see, but in the very corners here, there is oil saturated all over both ends of the transmission cooler. Now, more than likely, the transmission isn't leaking because I would have noticed it. I've checked the fluids, it's not gotten any lower. So I'm thinking that the condenser is leaking behind it. And so what I'm going to have to do right now is take apart everything to get the condenser out to double check it. I think I might be okay because most of my air, AC, Freon, whatever you want to call it, has leaked out. So I'll probably be okay there, but I'm going to start by taking this front end apart. And to do that, obviously, I got to get the grill off. There's a couple other bolts. So I'm going to pull that off real quick. I'll show you which ones that you do have to remove, and we'll see if I made any sense of this. Alright, so I actually thought that this disconnected from the bottom by looking down in here. I know the top loosens like so. It just pops up. I had thought that those just unclipped and let this go, but apparently that's not the case. Apparently on these vehicles you need to take off the whole front bumper, and to do that we have some rivets that have to be drilled out. They're permanent rivets, so you can't reuse these. You'll have to either use bolts or get more rivets to replace them, but these two will have to come off right here. There's a couple other small things like this right down here has to spin out, and then this bumper shell has to be pulled off in order to get to 2 bolts that are down here in the bottom of the grill. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take all that off. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll look at my discoveries underneath if I'm onto something. Alright, so just to give you guys an update of how this works, we went ahead and drilled out again the 2 plastic permanent rivets, which you'll see right here. This was the piece over here that came out of it, the actual rivet half of it. So there's that. You do have one 10 millimeter bolt that went right here. Then you'll see these 3 slots right here. This thing literally just pops out. You want to pull it back just a hair, don't break it, and then you're going to pop the bumper out like so. So this side is loose now. I got to do the same thing to the other side. I also went ahead and turned this plastic tab right here to loosen that. There might be some rivets on the bottom or connectors on the bottom. It looks like there probably is. I don't know for sure yet. Let me get the other side loose because I might just have to pull the shell forward and not actually have to remove the whole bottom half. So let me try that and I'll get back with you. Alright, so as I suspected, that was very easy. I literally did the other side and it just pulled right forward. And now you can see the 2 10 millimeter bolts, one on each side here, that we have to remove to get that front grille off. I'll pull those and get that grille out. Alright, so the 2 10 millimeter bolts have been removed. It's time to pull this thing off, and well, that was pretty easy. Let's go ahead and throw that out of the way here. Now, actually, you can really see what I was trying to point to you. Now, you couldn't see it earlier because of the sunlight and the grill was blocking it. But now when you look at it, you see all that darkness you see right there? that is where our Freon is leaking. You can tell it's not coming from our transmission cooler. It's definitely coming from the condenser itself. And typically, just like a radiator, the way you're going to figure out where this leak is, well, gravity does all the work for you. So wherever you start going from the bottom up and you don't see any more sludge, like right there, that's probably about the area where our break is. Now, I don't know what causes a condenser to go bad. I guess pressure over the years or whatever, but we know that it is, and it was fairly inexpensive on Rock Auto. It was like 70 bucks shipped. I will link that in the description below if you guys are interested or doing this same project. But moving forward, we need to get the core support off because we got to get that thing out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of these bolts here. There's this trim piece here and a few different things that got to come out. I get all that disconnected, get the wiring to the horns disconnected, and get that thing out of the way so we can get ready to lift this thing up and out. Fortunately for me, I think that most of the Freon is gone. I shouldn't have to have this evacuated at an AC place. I'll test it by pushing in the valve there, but I'm pretty sure that it is, so we should be fine here. So let me go ahead and get some of this stuff off, and we'll see if we can free this thing up at all. Okay, so from what I can tell, I have a plastic clip right here that needs to be removed. I have two 10mm bolts. I got a 10mm bolt right there. Got an 8mm bolt right there, and again another plastic clip and one more 10. So once I get that out, I should be moving forward. There might be a couple of these in the very front that have to go, but I'll let you know here in a second once I get them pulled out. Alright, so before I pull this off, I want to share with you all the extra hidden bolts that I didn't know were there that I found. Again, to start, we knew that we had two 10mm bolts here, a plastic clip there, a plastic clip here, and a 10mm bolt right there, right? We also had two 13mm bolts holding the core support right here. We had an 8mm holding the bottle right there. We had a 10mm here, another plastic clip here, and a hidden 10mm there. In addition to, there was a 10mm hidden right there underneath that. So I got that. Last but not least is loosening up this steel right here, and you want to do so with a tool like this. Now you don't have to, but here's my suggestion, and I'll tell you why. When you rip these little green plastic things out of here, usually they rip the foam rubber stuff, okay? It's kind of like a T inside there. When they come out, they don't go back in. And if I had to guess, I'd say this little seal right here probably costs more than that condenser, especially with the price of oil right now. So I would just imagine, but do your diligence and try to be careful with that. Anyhow, it's time to pull this thing off. I haven't disconnected any of the wiring yet. I'm hoping I can just lift this thing up and pull it forward. You'll find out here in a second if I can. Alright, so that did indeed work. The only thing I wanted to do to be safe and get a little bit more clearance was disconnect a couple plastic clips right here. And then went ahead and took out the two 8mm bolts that held in the latch because it was just kind of tight. And now this thing should, if I did something right, flip out of my way, and it does. So as we can see here, there is our condenser there. You can see there's two connections. We got one right there. One what looks to be right here as well that got to come out. And I think after we get those out, we should be able to pull this thing up and out of here. Alright, so just before I go and start pulling hoses and whatever connections, I want to make sure that there is no more Freon that's going to blast out at me. Now, I just had the car started to make sure everything was pressurized. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stand back to the side. I'm going to go ahead and stick this in here and see if I can get anything out. Just a quick push, nothing. Alright, so you'll feel the spring-loaded thing go back and forth just like it is in a tire. There's nothing in there, so we're good to go ahead and clear this out. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll take one of these tools to take it out. I'll throw a rag over top it just to make sure it doesn't blast at me. But again, with that pressure being basically next to nothing in there, I know that it is empty and we're safe to move forward. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to remove is a 13mm nut right there. I'm going to pull that off and separate that. I've already just loosened it, no pressure came out, so I know, again, I am good. And then we'll move on to the other side over there. That side's out. We're going to go ahead and work on this side. This side's actually really easy. There's just little metal clips that hold these things in, but we have to get this broke free first. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and pinch these two pieces right here and separate the unit just like so there. Then there's a clip that looks like holds right here. So now we got a little bit more leeway to get this thing out. I'm going to go ahead and show you, expose the little clips. You see that little metal clip right there? Basically, you're just going to take a small flathead screwdriver, like so, and we're going to simply pry this thing backwards. I'm going to do that off camera because I don't want anything shooting out my face for some reason. There is pressure on this side. There shouldn't be, but I'll get those taken out and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, and there are what those clips look like right there. Now it's time to go ahead and separate this. Now keep in mind this is lines going to your transmission as a transmission cooler as well. And so what's going to happen is when you separate these things back, you are going to have transmission fluid come out. So make sure you have something there, like a rag like this, to catch that. Before I do that, I have to make sure to separate my transmission cooler right here. It should pop right out by these clips right here without any problem. There it goes. We're good there. Now it's time to separate these things, and if I did everything right, I should be able to pull this thing straight up and out. Okay, and so there is our cooler now out, or our condenser is now out. Let me show you exactly what that looks like when it is out. Here you'll have the actual radiator straight behind. We've got a little bit of cleanup to do. Not a whole lot. Didn't leak real bad, but it was enough that I got it on my hand and a little bit of other places, but again, nothing upsetting. It's time to slide this new one in. I've got to look at it to make sure everything's identical and compare it to the old one, which I will do right now. And then we should be able to slide this thing and do everything in reverse. All right, and so here they are side by side, and from what I can tell, they appear to be identical, with the exception that the new one is painted on both sides, so go take that, OEM. One thing I did notice I really don't like is with the transmission cooler, it kind of clips in pretty hardly right to your condenser, which to me could be a failed point. Usually you have like a little almost zip tie looking thing that zips through it and has a clip on the back side of it. So it is what it is. I guess I'm gonna have to put it on the way it came off. I just don't really like that per se. But right now I gotta pull out that bolt and those two caps over there. We're gonna get ready to slide this thing back in, start getting this thing mounted up like we should. And if everything goes well, we're gonna see if we can charge this thing. Okay, so I just went ahead and removed this right here from this. And don't be surprised, or be surprised, because I was. This thing was filled with compressed air. It was like, poof, blew out, so it kind of scared me at first. Just compressed air, but that was probably to stop any moisture from getting into the system, which is very important. Now, I don't have an evacuation system. I think you can buy them from Harbor Freight to evacuate your system of any moisture or air. I'm not really going to do that. I'm going to try this without. I've done it in the past without. It would have been successful. I know the AC pros out there will be cringing. It is what it is. Fortunately, the wife has brought out the most important tool of the night, so we got that going. And now this thing is going back in. All right, guys, so one thing I want to point out real quick. I don't really know that this condenser is actually bad or has a leak. It very well looks like if that connector there is centered where all that spray is coming from, it could be coming from that spray. I'm sorry, the spray could be coming from that connector. And one of the upsetting things that I just realized that didn't come with this condenser, if you look here, these are actually two, if you can see those, two O-ring washers. They're basically a washer with rubber on both sides of it. And those could have easily failed and let this fluid leak out. I'm gonna be kind of upset if that's the situation, because this wouldn't have been bad. Now, I don't mind replacing this thing for $70, but I just would approve if they would have given me two cheap little washers, and I don't have those now. And I don't want to leave the system open to getting moisture in it. So I am going to bolt it back together, but I want to leave that as a note to you guys. Definitely, if you don't have those, buy those. Those are super, super, super important. And I just assumed that they came in the kit. They don't. The little bolt that pedestal or that nut goes on right there, that holds the whole little pedestal unit, that came with it, but no washers. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I got everything together now as far as the actual condenser and being put in. I am going to wait till tomorrow. I'll be right back. I want to let you guys know that I am going to get those new crush washers or whatever those things are called, the seal washers. I don't want to take a chance of that being a problem, something so stupid and little, and wasting all that Freon and having to go back into the air again. So I'll be back tomorrow to put everything back together, and we're going to try to do our best to get coolant in this thing if it's possible. Alright guys, so it's the next day, and while the weather isn't quite as good, I did go ahead and get the gaskets that I needed. Now, unfortunately, I did not get OEM, and I didn't have a choice because the dealership and nobody locally had them in time that I needed them. So this is the pack that I bought that was considered for the WK2. It is a multi-pack system, so it does come with several of them, and it's like less than $20, so it's a good deal. However, I really, really do not like using aftermarket O-rings in situations where there's high pressure, especially when you have R134, just because obviously it's dangerous to breathe in. But I don't have a choice at this point, so I will put a link in the description for this pack here. I got it from O'Reilly. You probably get it from just about anywhere else. However, I would definitely go with the OEM ones. If you're going to order the part online anyways, you might as well order these right ones to go with it. And I'll put a link in the description below for those as well. Anyways, it's time to go ahead and throw these in right there. Let me do that, and we'll see if we can get this thing filled up. Okay, so right now I have my bottle right here that's attached to my thingamabobber. We're going to go ahead and connect this, obviously, right there. And what I got to do is I got to get inside the car, start the car, put it on defrost AC max, and let it run for a minute while we pump some of these cans into her. Now, the problem is that because we're not being able to trick the, again, I think it's the low side switch to turn on to actually get the AC clutch kicked in. On older cars, if you didn't do that, this thing wouldn't pump in. So I don't know if this is actually going to work. I don't know if the tip of the module is going to think it's getting pressure and then pop on for me. I have no idea. So all I can do is try. If that doesn't work, I have a diagnostic machine that might be able to do it. And if that doesn't work, this is going to have to go to somebody else to charge it. I'm kind of hoping we don't have to do that because this video would be halfway senseless. So let me go ahead and fire this thing up and see if this thing works. All right, guys, so it worked. Check this out. We're going to go ahead and look at the compressor. You'll see it turns on and off and on and off. You'll see it there. It's off right now, and then it'll kick right on. So we got it working. That's great. The next thing to do is going to be basically using a thermometer and temperature testing exactly what the temperature is coming right out of the vents as opposed to the ambient air. Okay, so what I want to do right now is I just want to get something close to where we're going that doesn't have AC blowing on it for temperature. You'll see it says 57 degrees. If you can see that, it's kind of blurry. There you go, 56 degrees, max 57. Now let's go ahead and point at the vent that it's shooting out of. Obviously AC is working. That's fantastic. We did something right. It's time to shut this thing down and put everything back together. All right, and a sunset finish to another successful fix on the Grand Cherokee. Again, the AC is now working. It was an easy fix, and I did not have to bring it to a dealer or an AC repair technician to go ahead and refill and fix the leak. So this was a successful video. I hope somebody found this useful. If you did, throw that thumbs up, and if you're not already, definitely hit that subscribe button for more good content coming up. I'll see you guys in the next one.